Oh man, today is the day. I've been working here for 4.5 years, yeah, and every day I've been coming in, watching like just boring bikes getting delivered through the door, hoping that one of these is gonna get delivered, right? And let me tell you, up until now, what a long and disappointing career at Cycle Technology it's been. But today, that all changes, because in this box, we've got a Trek session. Let's have a little session checking it out. Let's have a look and see what's inside this box. It's gonna be a minute till I get the actual bike out, because there's all sorts of exciting stuff going on. Seat and seat post. A wheel. And then I think oh yeah, very gently put that down. You can't really see what's going on right now because it's in a state of disassembly, but we're going to put the seat post in, get it in the stand, build it up and see what's going on with this bad boy Trek session. There's more! Trek making absolutely sure that your bike doesn't get scratched in transit, which, you know, it's good, it's a good thing. It's just annoying. Just want to talk to you about, well actually, I just want to say thanks to Trek for equipping this monstrous downhill bike with wheel reflectors, pedal reflectors, and a dark disc. Come over here, come and have a look at this. Look at this thing. It wouldn't even do anything. If the chain went down the back of there, it'd still end up on the spokes. Why have you even put that on? Why? What is the point? I'm gonna cut it off. I'm gonna get my secateurs. Wait there. If you've seen any of our videos, you know how we feel about dark discs. This is unacceptable. This one is actually insulting, because dark discs do serve a purpose if the gears haven't been set up correctly. But we set up gears correctly here at Cycle Technology. This dark disc is utterly superfluous, so I don't know what Trek we're doing. It feels like they put it on just to annoy me and waste my time. Stupid thing. So here it is in the stand. I've put the front wheel on and put the brake on and you know, put the gear cable and handlebars on and stuff, all boring stuff that you don't need to see, so that we can see it in all its glory. And what an absolute beast it is, man. Like, I've always like eyed the session. I work here at a Trek partner store, so I like have a little look and see how, you know, what these bikes look like, and dream of having one myself, man. Reality is, where I live, there's no way to ride a bike like this, and you know, I've got a toddler, so park days and things like that are out of the question for me. But I love this bike still, man. It's an absolute monster. I love the high pivot design. I love how gnarly it looks, man. It's got 200mm of travel at front and rear. Like, I wish I had a reason to have one, because then I probably would have one. I'd probably struggle hiding it from my wife though. So yeah, man, let's have a look at the spec on this bike, break it down and see what's going on with the Trek Session 9 XO. So, as we do, starting at the back of the bike, concentrating on this section here, seeing what's going on. Obviously, it's the Session 9 XO, so it's got SRAM XO 7-speed derailleur, SRAM XO carbon crank with a 36-tooth front chainring. The cassette, as you can see, is tiny because downhill riders are always going downhill. It's an 11:25 ratio, which you probably wouldn't even see on the road bike of the man with the thickest legs nowadays. So yeah, but that's what it's like in downhill, man. This rear wheel is Trek's Line DH30, which is like arguably their strongest wheel. It's super boost spacing as well, so 157mm lock nut to lock nut distance over there. Still got Still got a reflector on it. I'm sorry I didn't take that off. I didn't mean to offend anyone, but I'll deal with that later. Looking at Trek's high pivot design, this has a number of benefits, as you've probably heard if you've read anything about Trek's high pivot design on the Slash or the Session. It creates a more rearward axle path, so when you're taking knocks underneath here, the rear wheel's kind of moving backwards and out of the way, allowing you to roll forward faster, which for, you know, downhill racers, that's what they want. The high pivot also brings this idler pulley up here, which facilitates the high pivot. It also brings the chain line nearer to the main pivot, so that when that rear wheel is swinging up and down, there's almost no chain growth here. Chain growth is the thing that leads to pedal kickback, which is apparently where your rear wheel compresses, the chain stretches, and it pulls your cranks back a little bit. I'm yet to experience it in real life, but apparently it is an issue for proper downhill riders and stuff, you know, and you obviously don't want your pedal kicking back whilst you're riding, so that's what that's all about. I also want to draw attention to this really cool, like, they've routed the chain over the top idler pulley through the frame itself. They've got this gnarly plastic stuff here, which is gonna, I can't imagine this chain ever falling off, man, which again, downhill bike, you don't want it to be coming off. It's just not what it's gonna ruin the riding experience. Down at the bottom, it's got a gnarly bash plate that runs all the way underneath, and then you've got the lower idler pulley, which again is just shrouded on both sides by this really tough plastic, which I think they've changed what they had on the Slash to look similar to this. But again, like, just looking, I just can't imagine the chain ever coming off, no matter how big the knocks are that you're taking. So yeah, and obviously you can see it's got like some really super tough armor here to protect the chain stay if the chain does pop up and down a little bit. You'll notice as well that the Session doesn't come in a carbon. There is no carbon Session. When Trek developed this bike, they talked to all of their team, and they did loads of tests, and the team basically said, we don't want a carbon Session, we just want it to be aluminium. We prefer the way that it rides. So that's what you've got. And this is, by Trek's words, the winningest downhill bike. And that was true in 2021. I don't know if it is still, but this has raked in, yeah, more gold medals than any other bike, or at least it did in 2021. Let's check out the rest of it. Moving now to the center of the bike, as you can see, it's got a RockShox Vivid Ultimate air shock on it. I've got the coil version of this shock, and I think it's absolutely amazing. One of my other videos, you can hear me talking all about it. This has got the same level of adjustability on it. You can play with a high speed compression, low speed compression, rebound damping, and it's also got a hydraulic bottom out, which is something that you can adjust. So when you're coming right to the end of your travel, rather than getting that clang when everything just smacks together, the hydraulic bottom out, it just slows that travel right down at the end, and you honestly don't feel it. You think you're in for a big whack, and then you just kind of ride out with thinking that was weird. I didn't feel anything. The little rebound adjustment knob down here pops out, and it's got a little 3mm Allen key on the end of it, and then you can use that whilst you're out on the trail to adjust your hydraulic bottom out and adjust your high speed compression down here as well, which I think is really cool. I'm going to put that back in later because it's quite fiddly. But yeah, and then obviously you've got this little knob on the side here to firm it up as well, for if you are doing a bit of pedaling, which might not be likely on this bike, but it's nice to have the option to firm up your rear end if you do need to. Now we're going to have a little look at the MinnoLink chips. It's got the Minnow links that you'll find on other Trek full suspension bikes up here on the seat stage, and you can flip these to give yourself a higher or lower bottom bracket height. And this bike is mulletable as well, so if you did want to put a 27.5 inch wheel on the back, you could flip your Minnow link to keep the bottom bracket height in a decent place. It's also got a little flip chip down here, which allows you to change the progression settings on your suspension from 20 to 25%. 20% it says is for race days, and a more plush setting is 25% for lazy days in the park. I don't think there's any lazy days in the park when you're riding one of these things. But yeah, so fully adjustable geometry setup there on the Session as well. Something else cool that I like about this bike is just underneath here, you can see the gear cable and the brake hose pop out from the frame because it's internally routed, and it remains external for a bit and then pops back inside the frame. But if you want to, you can choose to route it externally on these little bosses underneath here, and it just, some people prefer externally routed bikes, and they think that internally routed is the worst thing to happen to bikes in the last 20 years. I'm talking about my colleague Neil, he hates it. So yeah, for ease of maintenance and stuff like that, you can route this bike externally if you want to. Let's see what else is going on. Moving up to the front of the bike, it's got some pretty gnarly carbon handlebars on here. I'm going to try and say this properly now. The handlebars don't feel round to me, they feel a little bit squared off at the edges, and I'm almost certain that that was a purposeful design decision for strength, because it's a downhill bike and it's going to be taking some serious knocks, and your handlebars are not something that you want to fail. You'll notice that I've got like about 3 foot of steerer sticking out the top of here. This bike is for a customer, so we'll be cutting that down at a later date to his preferences. Obviously a direct mount onto the top of these rather naughty RockShox Boxer Ultimate triple clamp forks with, as I mentioned before, 200mm of travel. Looking underneath here on the down tube, it's got some pretty tasty protection down there. I mean, any rock bashes and things like that are going to be dealt with by that, but it is also for uplifts and things. If you're chucking the bike in the back of a Land Rover to get to the top of the trail, then that's going to protect your down tube there. Whilst we're up here, we may as well have a look at the brakes. It's got SRAM code RSC 4-pot brakes, which, yeah, pretty powerful brakes, man, when they're set up properly. I'm not a fan of SRAM, I like Maguras, but I have ridden these brakes before, and they wouldn't spec them on a bike like this if they weren't good. They've got running on 203mm rotors, I believe. Let me just check this out. No, that was wrong. 220mm, which is about as big as a rotor can get as far as I'm aware. Yeah, serious stopping power, man, which again, when you're riding down hills as this thing's intended to do, you want all the stopping power you can get. So proper big gnarly rotor at the front. Yeah, I think that's about everything I can say about this bike. It looks beautiful. I really wish it was mine so I could go for a ride on it. Doesn't have a dropper post because it's a downhill bike. It comes with Well-Go pedals, these little magnesium things. Usually any bike worth over about £1,000 from most brands, but definitely from Trek, don't come with pedals because they expect you to put your own ones on. This one comes with these like really solid little Well-Go sealed bearing magnesium pedals, which also have reflectors on them. And one thing I forgot to mention, this Vivid Ultimate Air Shock, I read an article saying it was a coil slayer, and by that what they're saying is that this thing is so plush and responsive to small bump that it is very similar to ride to a coil shock, whereas with other air shocks you get what's called stiction, so it takes quite a bit of pressure to actually activate and get the shock moving in the first place. This apparently doesn't suffer from that, and like I say, this is the highest spec'd session. There's a Session 8 that comes with a coil, and then this one is more expensive and higher spec than that one, and it comes with the Vivid Air Shock. So I mean, make of that what you will, but I can't imagine they'd put it on if it didn't do what it said it does. So who is this bike for? Well, Jerry, if you're pottering around on the old canal towpaths on the Pennine Trail, this isn't for you, man. Don't buy it. If I see you out there riding one of them, I'm gonna be sad, because it's designed for so much more than that, man. Like, I've got friends, I'm a bit jealous of them because my son isn't old enough to take him to the parks, but I've got friends who are going to parks every weekend with their sons and stuff, and they're going to like Dovey Bike Park and Farmer John's and places like that, and they're just hitting up massive trails, big jumps, big berms, gnarly stuff, man. I mean, if you're a racer, obviously this bike could suit you fine, we've already talked about that, but if you're into doing big stuff and you're not interested at all in pedaling along the flat or uphill, then this is the bike for you, man. If you like pointing downhill, this is what you want, basically. Like I've said before, my riding where I live, it's a lot of uphill and downhill and a lot of flat, so I really couldn't make use of this thing. But if you enjoy doing massive drops, massive jumps, and just always going down, this is the bike for you, man. Bonus content. The way that they size these bikes isn't the same way that they size other mountain bikes. This is sized on reach, so the size that the Trek comes in is R1, R2 and R3, and it's basically that the bike's a little bit longer. Because it's a downhill bike, you're not really going to be spending much time sitting down, so this is less important than this is. They've also got size specific chainstays as well, so everything stays nice and balanced. Can't tell you what size you'd be, you'd have to go and look it up, but that's how that size. I think it's pretty cool. One other thing to mention, my little bag of tricks, it comes with the adjustable headset cups, which you can have on a Slash, you can have on a Fuel. They don't usually come with them though. This bike actually comes in the bag from the box with these cups, which you can press them in with the proper tools, I might add, and you can make your head angle 1 degree steeper or 1 degree slacker, whatever your preference is, or you can just leave it stock as it comes. Thanks for watching.